to rock this place.
Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I'm your host, Jamie Malloy, and ready to talk Week 4 football with everyone. But first, let's bring back my co-host, the New York Mets fan, and also my fellow Bills fan. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Mr. Joe Delio. Joe, my man, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. Looking forward to talking about another excellent week of football here. Can't believe it's week 4 already that we're talking about. I mean, it seems like just yesterday we started this and we were looking ahead to the season. Now we're 4 weeks into it already. It's going a little too fast for my liking, but still lots of great stuff to talk about. And I look forward to talking about that with you.
Yeah, as the old cliche goes, time flies when you're having fun. And see,
That's
when
right.
you're younger, it's like time seems to go slower. You're not worrying about things. You're having fun as a kid. But then when you get to like your age, time goes really fast and everything. So you got to enjoy every moment you can because life's precious and we only have one life to live and YOLO.
And that's it. And keep in mind, I'm still young, mind you, but yes, it does go faster as we go along here.
That's great. So anyway, are you ready to start talking about these past week's football games?
I am. Yes. Looking forward to it.
All right, let's get started. So let's always start off with the Thursday night game, always brought to you by our good friends on Amazon Prime. The Detroit Lions handled the Green Bay Packers 34-20 at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So anyway, Joe, what did you think about this game? Your thoughts?
All right. We're starting to see a pattern with the Green Bay Packers here, and that's getting off to slow starts. The game before, they got off to a slow start and scored all their points in the fourth quarter and ended up winning that game. And the same thing happened here, at home, getting down early and getting down quickly and down by a lot. A different team that they're playing here in the Detroit Lions. And, they tried to make the comeback again and got close. But again, a different animal here in Detroit and not quite the same results as they had the previous week. So, the Detroit Lions, again, they're making me look bad here. I don't mind seeing them win, and the divisional window is certainly opening up for them because the rest of the division is not playing well. You got Minnesota, you got Chicago, who's winless, and Green Bay has been inconsistent. So right now it's Detroit's. I know we're only in week 4, and a lot can happen in that time. And again, my pick was the Vikings, and who knows, they could still make some noise there. But, that window is opening up for the Lions, and it's looking more and more like it's their division to lose. So, they played a solid game Thursday night. I got to watch about half of it. And, they look good, and the Packers, again, had moments, but a little bit too much inconsistency there, and they better start showing up for games at the beginning of the game, or else they're going to start losing games early again and not be able to come back like they did a week ago. You seeing the same things I'm seeing there?
Yeah, you couldn't say it better myself. But you got to put two halves together because sometimes playing a bad first half can lead to a better second half, and you come back and win. But other games when you're playing Detroit, it's going to be too little, too late. Green Bay, the Lions capitalized on their opportunities on offense. The running game was great. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery both ran the ball excellent to kill time, and all their time of possession, led the touchdowns and everything. And Green Bay tried their best to come back, but they put a good effort in the second half. But like you said, it was just too little too late. And I think the Lions are showing right now that this is their division to lose. And Minnesota just came off their first win, and now they got to play home against Kansas City. So we'll see if a certain somebody's going to be at that game next week too.
Yeah,
So yeah. But anyway, the Packers right now, they need to just calm down and shake it off because they don't want to have a blank space at the end of the season.
I love the references. I was wondering if your shake it off example was referring to who. And then you just clinched it with the other reference. Very well done.
Exactly. So I gotta do that, right? A lot of podcasts are gonna start doing that now, mentioning her references to get views and everything and to try to get people to listen.
Right.
So yeah, that's what we're doing with us. Anyway, and we're also talking football too. So moving on to our game this week, the 1:00 Miami at the Bills game. Joe, what did you think about the Bills' complete team win against a Dolphins team that was 3-0, put 70 points up against Denver last week, and an offense that calls very, very fast plays with speed and versatility?
Yeah, just an amazing performance by the Bills. Just, like you said, complete team effort all the way around, playing an amazing team. Right now, the Bills are more amazing, in my opinion. Just every aspect of the game that you can think of. And again, I said it last week, the Dolphins scored 70 points the week before. So many times when a team comes back the next week, they don't even come close to that. In fact, I picked, put a little wager on the Dolphins under. I think it was under 27.5 that I got it for. And, I was confident that the Bills would keep them under that number. And, just every aspect, like I said, every aspect of that game. Offensively, Josh Allen had something like 158 quarterback rating, something along those lines, 4 touchdowns, just mistake-free football. I thought I was watching the 2021 playoffs in that game, just how he played, almost perfect and flawless football. And that's what we saw here, just completely in control, just looked like he had, again, complete control of everything on that field. Stephon Diggs is having probably the best start of his excellent career. I mean, another game over 100 yards. I think he had 100. I think I'm forgetting the exact numbers. 120 or even maybe 130. And this is like the third game in a row he's excelled out there. And I'm sure he's getting multiple coverage here. So. It's not like he's a third receiver that's kind of, unexpectedly getting open. He's always covered by at least one defender, and it just continues to shine. The running game maybe took a step back, but that's okay. I mean, again, the passing game was amazing. Defensively, stopping this offensive machine called the Dolphins that, again, just scored 70 points the week before and has been basically unstoppable all year. I mean, the Bills defense showed up, and I think we talked about it last week that we knew they would, and they certainly did. And Matt Milano played like Matt Milano. It may be quiet the last couple of weeks, but he went out there and excelled as he normally does. Bills were missing Jordan Poyer. That was a little bit of a concern, but Rapp, his replacement, did just fine. He did an excellent job out there, and just it's nice to know that if something happens, extended with Poyer or even Micah Hyde, you have somebody, a capable backup there. So again, just all around, the defense played amazingly. The Dolphins look confused out there. None of their receivers that had been excelling got going. A couple of big plays here and there, but really nothing consistent by the Dolphins, and just absolute solid all-around team effort, and I think Bills fans, Bills players, everybody associated with the Bills, should be proud. I'll ask you too, what stood out to you the most about this game?
I think what stood out to me is all those points you mentioned. The fact that the offense was balanced again. Like you said, the running game did take a step back, But what was really cool is I like how they did the thing where they motioned Diggs and Deontay Hardy into the backfield like they do with Deebo Samuel. We told you about the Deebo Samuel effect. The Bills are incorporating that, and it seems like it's working in the passing game too. They're able to find Gabe Davis wide open with those pre-snap mismatches. And also, you mentioned Matt Milano. I think he's very underrated. He's one of those guys that doesn't seem to get enough publicity, even though he's a star in this league. But he's a guy that he's a modern day NFL player, but he has that throwback mentality of when he was in Boston College, he had to work his tail off at everything he had to do. Nothing was handed to him. He wasn't looking for instant gratification. And he was only a 5th round pick by the Bills. And I mentioned in one of my articles I wrote that the ESPN analyst said that when they drafted him, he was only supposed to be a special teams guy and that he wasn't even supposed to be a starter for 2 to 3 years. But then magically against the Oakland Raiders at the time I was at that game, he made his first start as the 5th round linebacker and forced a fumble and recovered at 40 yards for a touchdown in his first game. And that was like, okay, we got something special in this kid. I also think, like I said, the defense shut down a Miami offense that looked unstoppable the first week. Sean McDermott, man, everybody talks about these offensive gurus as head coaches, and you got to have those now to be able to win a Super Bowl. Well, Sean McDermott's a defensive guru that slowed down a supposed offensive guru like Mike McDaniel. So McDermott doesn't ever get talked about how great of a defensive coordinator he is besides being a head coach.
Right. And I got to love the job he's doing. And again, we were confident of this last week. You know, we knew the Bills defense would show up as they've been showing up all year. And still, even, you know, showing up against this excellent offense doesn't guarantee results. I mean, you still had to get results. But again, you could tell how well they were playing the defense just by how unorganized and how confused and just how nothing was working, you know, for the Dolphins. I mean, that's the sign right there, I think, that shows the Bills defense was, you know, carrying out its game plan and really making things difficult for the Dolphins like nobody has so far this year.
Yeah, and another cool thing to see, the Bills were smart when Tua tried to keep throwing those quick 5-yard routes. They send the Bills defensive end, they send Oliver and Russo to sack him, and Oliver was batting passes down at the line of scrimmage, and that's the formula to slow down this Miami offense that calls a bunch of wild plays that you've probably never seen in the NFL before. Get those hands up and tip those balls and get the interception like Micah Hyde did there when it was 34-20 in the third quarter. So that was big as well. And I also want to go back to your point about the offense playing clean football and everything with Josh Allen. Josh Allen's a smart guy. I mean, he knew that he was just, like I said, I've said this many times, but he was way too energized in the Monday Night Football game against the Jets. He just needed to dial it back a few, and he's done that, and he's played turnover-free football, and knock on wood, that continues. And if he keeps playing like that, along with our defense, I think we can win that Lombardi trophy at the end of the season. But we still got a long way to go. And as Dion Dawkins says, it's just another victory against the Dolphins, and it's a week-to-week league.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I agree with all of that that you just said there. You know, I mean, you can get excited about it, but, you know, enjoy the victory, but there's still a lot to go. And, you know, again, Josh Allen being smart is exactly right, you know, and he learns, and that's how he's gotten to this point, you know, as far in his career. And after week one, I mean, how many people in Buffalo, how many people nationally are saying, that's it, what's wrong with Josh Allen? He's not going to be the same quarterback as he's been, you know, and there was that concern, and how's he going to react? And I think he's answered that question as how is he going to react. And again, we're seeing, you know, as I said a few minutes ago, I feel like the playoff 2021 version of Josh Allen right now, because, you know, again, that quarterback rating is as good as it gets. And just, again, just seeming in control, seeming like, you know, even if he made a mistake or two, you know, which he did, still bouncing right back and getting the job done. So, I think there's a lot of reason for optimism there.
There is. And as you also mentioned about the defense with Poyer being hurt and Taylor Rapp coming in, we wouldn't have been talking about this like even a couple years ago, 4 years ago. They went down, that it was hard for the defense to respond, especially last year with all the injuries they had. But luckily, we did a good job at having more depth this year in case things like that happen. And speaking of traumatic and sad injuries, even with the great win, we had to suffer worth a season-ending loss of pro or all-pro cornerback Trey White. How do you think this is going to impact the team and the defense moving forward?
Well, it's that was certainly the saddest thing we've seen all year as far as the Bills are concerned. Obviously, he worked so hard to come back, from his ACL tear a couple of years ago, and he was just getting to the point where he was playing consistent, solid football like he had played before the injury, and excuse me, you thought the sky was the limit with this guy. And then just like what happened in New Orleans on Thanksgiving a couple of years ago, a non-contact freak injury, and again, I was thinking, shoot, it happened on turf. Is that conversation going to come back up again? When Aaron Rodgers went down, everybody's talking, it's the turf, and I didn't hear anybody mention that about Tre'Davious White, but it's a topic to come back again. And maybe that's a discussion for another time, but it's just sad, that the guy worked so hard to come back. He plays a year later, and then getting to the point where he was as good as he was, if not better, certainly, difficult to see. And of course, you could see his reaction on the field. It's just, we feel bad for him, but you could imagine how he feels right now and what he's going through. And he's got another long recovery back. It's certainly possible, and confident that he can get back, but you don't lose a guy like that without it having an effect on the defense, and now they're going to have to come up with answers. And they had the answer on that side. It was the other side where it was like, okay, who's playing? You have Benford there and Dane Jackson that were holding the fort, that were doing well. Elam, God only knows where he is. And now does that bring him back and give him an opportunity? I don't know. But, it's certainly going to have impacts, and it's certainly concerning, that, how is the defense going to react? The defense has been playing so well, but certainly, and now how does that affect other offensive passing games? And, how again, it's going to have an effect. It's just a matter of how much. I'm wondering, I was going to ask you too, because I didn't check this. I didn't hear anything. Any rumblings about who's going to play on that side, or what they're going to do about his absence?
I do actually have a big story, and this is a big one too, because we just found out the Bills are actually working out one of our recent guests from the USFL podcast, Mr. Arnold Tarpley III, as a safety from the Pittsburgh Maulers, who I had the opportunity to sit in a USFL podcast with Evan and Adam, and I got to interview him and Troy Williams for a story I was doing in the USFL. Awesome. So I want to say first, Tarp, if you make the team, I just want to say hey again, and I'd like to, if you make the Bills, I'd like to bring you on for an episode again, and we could talk about talk shop again and talk about now you're on the Bills and how it's different from the Maulers. And we'd love to have you on again as part of Driving to the Top production. So yeah, my thought is this is just a speculation. It's not true that if he comes in and plays safety, do you move Damar Hamlin to be the starting corner with Kyer Elam too? Because if I'm not mistaken, when we drafted Damar Hamlin in 2021, I believe the experts said he could play safety and corner. I think he was versatile to do both, but that's just one possibility. And if that doesn't happen, I just say let Kyer Elam play number one. He showed as a rookie last year that even though he struggled at the beginning of the year, that he came on towards the end of the year. And if he gets his opportunity to play, I think he'll shine in this defense, especially with our front four and our linebackers and our ability to both rush the passer with just four guys and blitz as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, I don't understand why he's in the doghouse at this point. I mean, again, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I completely trust, the Bills coaching staff and the decisions that they make. So I'm sure there's a reason for it. But I think, their eyes are open now. I think Elam's eyes are open now with this potential opportunity. And again, like I said, I haven't heard that that's going to happen. I agree that that's an excellent possibility. And, if he gets this opportunity, it's now or never for him. And I think, again, this year has been a struggle and he hasn't gotten the time in the games, but here's your silver platter of your opportunity. And, take advantage of it if you get it. Again, I don't know if that's what they're going to do. And again, I don't think I've ever met somebody who's as supportive as the USFL as you, so I wouldn't mind seeing one of those guys come in either, especially somebody that but I guess it remains to be seen, and we'll have to keep our eyes open. But again, the way the Bills defense and McDermott's been operating, with it, I'm confident that they're going to find a solution. Again, it's not, no matter what kind of solution they come up with, is it going to be as good as Tre'Davious White? Probably not. And you're going to have to make adjustments there. But I trust them fully that they'll come up with the best solution.
Yeah, and if Arnold Tarpley does, like I said, if he does make the team, it's a perfect fit because he's coming from a blue-collar city like Pittsburgh where they built their team sort of like the Bills, culture, family, loving each other, and it helped them get to the finals of the USFL championship game. And now he'll have a chance to do that and bring his leadership with the Bills to help him not only get to the championship, but win a Super Bowl. So it sounds like a match made in heaven there. So
that would be good. And I like your Damar Hamlin possibility there too. Now, I was not aware that he could play both positions, but who knows? That's at least maybe if he doesn't start there, you got some depth if they decide to go in that direction as well. So that's something to keep an eye on too.
That is a good thing to keep an eye on. So, but the good news is with the subtraction comes the possible addition. And isn't it great that Von Miller is going to start practicing again in week 5? And once the Bills start Miller practicing off the PUP list, the Bills will have 3 weeks to decide if they want to add him to the 53-man roster. And wouldn't that be a welcome addition for the team where they're 3-1, the defense is playing well without him, and if they keep winning, he might be the extra force to help them win the Super Bowl and make a deep playoff run in late January to early February. Your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have him back, and hopefully they can get him in there. You wonder with the defense clicking so well, and the chemistry so well, even a guy with Von Miller's reputation and stature and results, you kind of wonder sometimes, with somebody, how would that affect the chemistry? And with another player, maybe I would worry about that. But with Von Miller coming in there, I don't think it has any negative effects at all on the chemistry. In fact, I think, a defense that's been playing so well can get better, with that addition. So it will be interesting to see. I don't know if you have any ideas when they were talking, as far as getting him back. I don't think he's going to London with the team, but, perhaps a week or two after that, and just getting him in there, we can have this team actually playing, better than it already has. Have you heard anything about what game he could potentially get back in there?
No, I have not. But what I do know is this was a similar situation that happened with the Broncos in 2013 when he tore his ACL and he missed the rest of the year, and the Broncos still won the Super Bowl, but he came back for week 1 of 2014.
Okay.
But I don't think that's going to happen here. Don't promise me on that, but we'll see what happens there.
Right.
That's all I know is this happened to him before, and he was able to still come back and be the Von Miller that we all know and love. So even with Denver, we all liked them then.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I could see the same thing happening here, you know.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, let's move on to the Sunday 425 game. Now that Dak and the Cowboys, they got back on track, as I probably figured that they would after losing to Arizona. They got back on track with a 38-3 blowout against the Patriots this week. And they actually, the Patriots made some bad history this week, as this was the worst defeat by a Coach Belichick team in his tenure with the Patriots and during any tenure when he was with Cleveland back in the day. So what did you think about this bounce back performance by the Cowboys? Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I honestly, it's hindsight, yes, but I saw this coming from a mile away. I'm pretty optimistic about the Patriots, and I keep telling people that, they're maybe better than people think. Not that they're going to be a playoff team or anything. I mean, I only saw them winning like maybe 8 games. But I have some friends around here that are actually Patriots fans, and they're all down on the team, and I'll be the one saying, "Hey, you guys are going to be close. You're going to keep it. Hey, you got a chance. You're going to keep it close." And I'm more optimistic about the Patriots than them. But before this game, my quote to them was, "I don't think this is going to be pretty." You got a ticked off Dallas team that laid an egg the week before. They're a Super Bowl contender, and Super Bowl contenders come back from bad games strong. They're playing at home. New England just came off their first win against the Jets. And again, they tend to, and I think will continue to play teams tough. But just everything was lining up in this case for Dallas to, for this game not even to be close and for Dallas to win convincingly. So I was not surprised at all to see this happening. I didn't know until they showed the graphic that this was Belichick's worst loss as a coach anywhere. But again, that's credit to Dallas. I mean, Super Bowl teams, like I said, come back from bad losses. And I think based on this performance, Dallas proved that they are indeed a Super Bowl contender.
Indeed so. And now there's rumblings going on that I think the Patriots are starting to realize Mac Jones is getting kind of stale, and there might be some quarterback controversies going on, because I'm one of those people who've been advocating for Bailey Zappi to get more playing time, because even when he came in, he was throwing much better balls than Mac Jones, where granted it was garbage time, but he looked pretty decent. So what do you think? Is there a quarterback controversy in New England? Should they move on from Mac Jones and give the keys to Bailey Zappi now?
Yeah, I mean, it made the game interesting. I mean, just as I was falling asleep on that game, once, Mac Jones was benched, that woke me up a little bit and got me on the edge of my seat. And I said, okay, let's see, what Zappi does. And I was thinking exactly what you were saying. If not that they were going to come back and win that game by any means, but, if he performs well, what happens after this? And if they lose another game or two and not close and bad performance by Jones, you may see, more of Zappi. And I think he deserves a chance, to be honest with you. Let's see what he can do. I mean, I don't know who New England is playing this week, but I'd be curious to see how that goes. And I haven't heard anything about him getting a start this week or anything yet. I haven't really paid much attention to it, but it would be interesting to see. And I think, if things continue in this direction, you might indeed have a little bit of a quarterback competition there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see do you see him actually taking over the starting job possibly?
I think so, and that's because I'm Zappy instead of because I'm happy. Pharrell Williams, you're Pharrell, yeah. um. So let's move on. Moving on to Sunday night's game with Kansas City and the New York Jets. It looked like it was going to be a thrashing by KC, but the Jets got their momentum when they had a safety, a field goal, and then they got a touchdown drive at the end of the first half. And Zach Wilson might have played his best game as a pro yet, despite a losing effort. And he acquitted himself very well, and they only lost a very tight game, 23-20, where Mahomes got picked off twice. And that Jets defense did have a good game plan for Kansas City. And but I didn't like that holding call at the end that could have gave the Jets a chance to drive down and win the game. And but what are your thoughts, Joe? What are your thoughts about the game just constantly pointing the camera towards who like 17 times throughout the game instead of the actual game?
It's a funny story, but I'm it's getting old for me already. I have nothing against Taylor Swift. I really don't. But, I'm trying to watch a football game, not a soap opera here. So, okay, she's in the stands. There's plenty of other celebrities in the stands. You show them, it's interesting. It's funny, but enough. Let's watch a football game, especially a football game as good as this. I was thinking, first quarter here that, I couldn't see how things could get worse, for Wilson. And it was, I said, it's 17-0. He's not doing anything. Jets fans are getting ticked off. It's like, this really just can't get any worse. And then all of a sudden, just, then the Jets had a couple of rumblings and they score. And I still thought Kansas City was going to run away with this game. But just the momentum turned so quickly in this game. It was unbelievable. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I, was very tired that night. I went to bed at halftime, but I was half expecting to wake up and either see the Chiefs still winning by 3 touchdowns or the Jets actually pulling this off somehow. And, the fact that they kept it close, their defense played a great game here against the Chiefs, and again, just proved what we saw week 1. The Jets can stop good offenses as they did in week 1 and as they did here. And they came this close to winning this game. So you give them a lot of credit. And, maybe it's a step forward for Zach Wilson. This is a step that maybe this is the confidence boost that maybe gets him some support from fans in New York and fans around the league, and maybe gets them moving in the right direction. So I guess only time will tell. And he's shown flashes of brilliance before, only to fall back and have it be a fluke. So I guess, again, only time will tell. But, that Jets defense, as we said in the beginning of the year, it's going to keep them in games. And just like it kept them in this game, even though it looked like this game was going to get away from them in a hurry. But kudos to them. I think they should be very proud of the effort. And, we'll see where it takes them going forward.
Yeah, exactly. What did you think of the post-game interview with Rodney Harrison and Chris Jones? Chris Jones was saying that Zach Wilson's is special and he's a special talent. And Rodney Harrison made a really bad quote about trying to say at the beginning, oh, you're looking at this kid, Zach Wilson's garbage and everything, but he looked great. And Rodney Harrison tried to say, wait, you think he's special, Chris Jones? He goes, I think he had a special night and he's not special. And I think Chris Jones handled that very well, not trying to bite into the old mainstream narrative. But I want to say Zach Wilson, I think even after that game, may have changed the narrative about him as a quarterback. So what do you think of those two stories and tidbits?
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest with you. I did not see that interview, and I wasn't even aware of it until you said that. So, it's interesting. And, I think the people around Zach Wilson are just trying to give him as much confidence as possible. Because if he has another couple of games like this, then that momentum continues. And again, he's not Aaron Rodgers, but now, again, with that defense, you're giving yourself a chance, and there wasn't that hope before this game. And now maybe you have a little glimmer of hope. And then he has another game or two where he plays like that, and you got some optimism there. So the people around him, are going to do everything they can to try to pump him up and give him as much confidence as possible. And that's the smart thing to do, because he needs that support. He needs that confidence that he can do it, because the ability is there. I strongly believe that. He's not a horrible athlete. He's a great athlete, but it's just a matter of mentally putting it together and knowing that he can lead a team. That's the confidence he needs. Now again, he's not going to do it like Aaron Rodgers, but give the guy a chance, and again, I understand you can't be too patient, especially in New York. And even I had said, yeah, I think this guy really isn't the answer, even though a couple of weeks ago, I think we talked about that, or at least I know I said that they were talking about who's going to replace Aaron Rodgers, who's the next guy in, what washed up guy are they going to bring in? And I said right here, I think, Zach Wilson is their best choice, just because he knows the system and he's been there and he can develop. But even after saying that, I'm like, maybe I was wrong about that. Maybe he's not the guy. But now, again, you have a performance like this, and you buy yourself a little bit more time and, see what you can do. You saw the interview, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about that. I mean, what was your reaction to it? And do you think it is something that was helpful to him to fire him up, or, maybe have the opposite effect?
Personally, he may not care, but I think it fired him up. I think he's going to use it as fuel to keep working hard. And what you notice is what they were doing is they were kind of giving him plays with Josh Allen. Josh Allen just had to die down his passion a little bit,
right,
and just play within the system. You could see that with Zach Wilson as well. He was kind of jacked up, I think, in his first couple of years, but they were giving him all these short, easy completions, and just now they're having to manage the offense and not mess up and don't turn the ball over, and just have him play within the system. That's what it is there.
Right.
And I also think when Patrick Mahomes came up to him and shook his hand during the post game, and he explicitly said, "You played your explicit, what off."
Right.
That just tells you Zach Wilson can be a good quarterback when even Patrick Mahomes is praising you like that after everything he's been through.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think he's fully capable of playing a simple offense. I like that philosophy. Just go out, make a few, short passes. You don't have to go out and like they said to Josh Allen, you don't have to be Superman. Just go out and control things and do what you're supposed to do and find ways to win. And if Zach Wilson can play with that same philosophy, he's fully capable of handling a simple offensive plan, and if he's sent out with the same instructions, just go out there, do the best you can. Don't lose the game for us, do what it takes to win. And again, you got a defense that can keep you in games, and just make the right plays at the right time, and you can still be a successful quarterback.
Yeah. And another thing that I think was really cool is when he turned the ball over late at the end, Zach Wilson basically he lip synced Josh Allen's words. He lip synced, "I lost us the game. It was my fault." And it's exactly what Josh Allen did. But that's good to see a young man like that mature and take responsibility for a game like that. Maybe that'll help him moving forward like it did with Josh Allen. I'm not saying Zach Wilson's Josh Allen, but he does have Josh Allen abilities in terms of his athleticism. He just has to be more accurate with how he plays the ball. But I love to see that young man starting to get in, start to get a grasp of what the offense is doing. And he's taking that growth very well, and he's taking to it pretty well.
Yeah, you want to see a quarterback with that kind of attitude. And honestly, I disagree with him a little bit. I don't think he lost the game for them. I mean, that's a tough play at a tough time. But, again, they lost that game by 3 points. They could have easily lost it by 30, the way the game was going. So the fact that they came back and had a chance to win against the defending Super Bowl champs, I think he could be very proud of that. But again, you want a quarterback that's going to take ownership and say, "Hey, that's on my shoulders. I could have done something different. I could have won us that game, and I didn't do it. I failed." Again, I think he's being a little hard on himself there. But again, if you're a Jets fan, I think you want to see that. That's what I want to see from any quarterback that I'm a fan of.
Exactly. Especially in the era of, instantly famous. And like I said,
Mhm.
victim mentality, blaming others. He chose to take the high road and accept responsibility even when he didn't have to. So that's
That's
great.
right.
Um, anyway, let's move on to and with the Monday Night Football game as the Seahawks taking on your second favorite team, the New York Giants. And oh boy, man, I don't know what's going on with the Giants now. I mean, we did say that they were going to take a step back, but
Hmm.
I wonder if the sky's already falling at 1-3 right now. I mean, it was 14-3. Looked like they were going to drive down and make it a 4-point game. And what does Daniel Jones do? Go back to the old, I'm going to throw a costly interception. But to be fair, though, that was Devin Witherspoon. And I loved that pick when Seattle made that pick there at number 5. I watched his highlights, and I'm like, this guy's only little. He's only 5'11", 180, but he plays the corner position tough. He comes in, he lays the lumber, he forces turnovers, he does everything as a corner. But yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones is making all the money. I don't know if we're running out of excuses for him. I know they keep saying they're shoveling their offensive line. And yes, the offensive line isn't very good, but I still think he needs to make a play off the pass rush and everything. So, Joe, as the Giants being your second favorite team and our former OC Brian Dable coaching the team, is the season already over there? What does Dable have to do to prove that he's a good coach, even with a rough start like this?
Yeah, and it's only going to get rougher for them, because they have another couple of tough games. I believe in 2 weeks they're here in Buffalo, so on a Sunday night game. And shoot, I forgot to check the schedule here, but I think they have a difficult game this coming week too. So it's
At
not.
Miami.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so at Miami, and you think the Dolphins are a little ticked off and ready to take out some frustration. So, and it's still going to be 90 degrees probably in Miami this time of year. I will say this, as an optimistic Giants fan, they're not as bad as they look. There's a good chance they're going to be 1-5. And again, we did say they were going to take a step back, and certainly they're not a playoff team, and they're showing that. And again, tough schedule coming up, but I still think they're going to be competitive down the road. Again, playoffs might not be a possibility, but they may be still one of those teams that you don't want to play later in the season, especially if you're a team trying to make the playoffs and trying to get some important wins. A team like the Giants and coached by Brian Daboll, they could be a problem, later on. So don't count them out totally. I mean, again, I'm not picking them to make the playoffs or anything, but they're not this bad. Now I'll add something to this, and we were talking about the Patriots and a potential controversy there. I caught again about half of this game, but I read an article in one of the papers today, excuse me, USA Today or one of the papers, and it basically said how upset Brian Daboll was, with Daniel Jones, and he was not happy at all. And again, we know Brian Daboll is patient, and we know he's very good with quarterbacks and offenses. So if he's getting upset and if he's getting frustrated and angry, that says the situation is worse than you might think it is. So I'm starting to wonder, what, and he just signed a contract and things like that. So what's going to happen here? I mean, it's not like they have many options, as far as potential replacements there, but I don't know. It's Dayball is basically lighting the fire and said, you better get your act together. And I think Daniel Jones is good enough and smart enough to do that. And again, he's not as bad as he's showing, just like the Giants aren't as bad as the record shows. And I think he'll get his act together. And again, he can win them some games later on against some teams that need wins themselves. So again, do I think they're going to be competitive for playoffs at all? No. Do I think they're this bad? No. And do I think they can give some teams fits later in the season, especially teams that need big wins? Yes, I think, and if they can do that, and if Daniel Jones gets his act together, and the Giants have some big wins later in the season against teams that are trying to make the playoffs or teams that are trying to, get higher seeds or whatever, then I think you can, that'll be your success for the season. And then I think you'll be able to look forward to next year with a little bit more optimism, So again, it's sad to see. And again, you want to see a team compete, like the Jets the day before, they lost, but it was a good loss. If there's such a thing as a good loss, I guess, I don't want to have a loser's mentality here, but the Jets can look themselves in the mirror and be proud of that game that they played. The Giants can look themselves in the mirror and be ashamed of themselves for a performance like this. But I don't think you're going to see many more of these types of performances. I think they're going to be competitive later in the season, and again, a difficult win for some good teams later on.
Still could be a 7-10, 8-9 team at the end of the year, I feel like.
I could see, maybe 7 wins. I don't see many more than that, but I could see 7-10, but again, a team that maybe you don't want to play later in the season.
Exactly. Especially the way, don't forget, Brian Dable's like McDermott. He runs a type ship that's based on culture and how to handle ups and downs. And we went through that our second year with McDermott after his first year, and the Giants are kind of doing the same thing now. We talked about that many times. So hopefully the Giants continue to follow the course of what the Bills did the first 2 years, and then they'll have continued success with Dable like we have with McDermott.
Yep, and I think that's entirely possible.
Mm-hmm. So now get ready, Joe, because guess what? I know you're going to be amped up for this. What is our podcast? What does it have to do with anything without our question of the week segment? What good is that, right?
I'm ready. I feel like I'm ready to give you a correct answer here.
Okay, so would you like to answer the question? Are you sure you're ready for the correct answer?
I'm confident. Yes. Now I don't want to pump myself up too much because I don't want to look bad if I screw it up, but I'm confident. Bring it at me.
Okay. So here's your question. Who do you think this current starting quarterback is? He has 4 playoff appearances. He was a 4th-round pick, and he has a 62.8 win percentage in his starts. Is it Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Derek Carr? Again, he has had 4 playoff appearances. This starting quarterback was a 4-time playoff quarterback, drafted in the 4th round, has won 62.8% of his games in his career. So is it Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, or Derek Carr?
Got a different question? No, I'm just kidding. Let's see. So 4 playoff appearances. I think Russell Wilson has had more than that. So I'm gonna put him out of the conversation. You said Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, and who was the other one besides Wilson? You said, Carr, right?
Derek Carr, yeah.
I'm not sure if he's made the playoffs 4 times.
And the key word here is he was a 4th-round pick.
4th-round pick. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I'm going to go with my first instinct. As you were reading the list, I had this person in mind. I think he matches the 4s, 4th round, and 4 playoff appearances. I am going to say Dak Prescott.
You are correct, my buddy. The answer is Dak Prescott. And the reason being is I gave you that key word, 4th-round pick. Derek Carr was a 2nd-round pick.
Okay.
So you knew it wasn't Derek Carr.
Yeah, and I didn't think he had been
Kirk Cousins was a 4th-round pick.
Okay.
Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round pick. So the only 2 that were 4th-round picks there were Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott.
Okay. And like I said, the playoff appearance has helped me a little more. There's, again, Wilson, I think, has been in the playoffs more than 4 times. And Cousins and Carr, I wasn't sure. But okay, I can sleep tonight. So I got this right. And that was an excellent question.
You got it. And you said you were going to give us the correct answer, and you did. Congratulations, Joe. That's awesome.
Through.
Doing my Pat McAfee claps like him and the guys do on the Pat McAfee show where they go, yeah, after everything. And ESPN, I love that.
That's awesome.
Hey, guess what? And also to quote McAfee, you were a champion on that question. Anyway, let's move on and take a look at the dominating defensive linemen playing this season. So being a 3-time defensive player of the year, 9-time Pro Bowler, and 32-year-old Aaron Donald never seems to slow down for the LA Rams, a.k.a. Mr. 4.6, 40-yard dash, also a.k.a. Mr. Modern Day small but quick defensive end who's like a linebacker, can rush the passer, get after the quarterback, stop the run, and you could put him on the edge as well, besides being a defensive tackle. What do you think of him, Joe? Your thoughts on Aaron Donald?
He's, you could put him in an all-time great category, I believe, and then add a Super Bowl championship to his resume as well. Maybe lost a little bit of a step at this point, but, I watched the Rams not too long ago, and he was still a force to be reckoned with, So, again, maybe not the same player he was even a couple of years ago, and age catches up with people. I'm not sure exactly how old he is, but still, would I want him on my team at this point still? Yes. But definitely, again, somebody you can put in the all-time great category and still playing well. Like I said, the game I saw where the Rams were playing there, he was impressive, and still somebody that they had to reckon with. So A+ there.
A+, and I agree with you on that as well. When I first saw him, I was like, man, this guy's a freaking truck. He can bulldoze you. He can do spin moves across the defensive line. He's very athletic, very fast. And he can just sack the quarterback and put him on his back and make a name for himself. So I also think, like I said, being a Super Bowl winner and everything, and that's also a great thing as well. So anyway, let's see where we are. After missing all of training camp with the Chiefs and tallying 15.5 sacks for them last year, Joe, what are your thoughts? What do you think of Chris Jones? And as I mentioned earlier, he handled that interview very well with Rodney Harrison about Zach Wilson. No arguing, no anything. He just stayed cool and collected.
Yeah, I mean, I had a bad taste in his mouth. I hate when players hold out. It's like they're making billions of dollars here, and then to hold out. I hate when they do that. So I had a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth about him at first. But, I talked about Aaron Donald maybe kind of trailing down and maybe past his peak. I think now, with the Chiefs here, you got somebody who's, I think, just entering his peak, and really showing us what he can do. And, I've been very impressed with the couple of games I've watched him play this year. And he doesn't seem to have any ill effects whatsoever of the holdout there and missing all the training camp. So he's kind of put his money where his mouth is, and again, I don't believe in holdouts and I don't like that philosophy, but this guy has certainly proved himself to me. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. He's shown up and he's really proven that, his worth. And again, I think it's the opposite of Donald. You got a guy coming right into his peak right now, I believe. Would you agree with that?
Yes, you do. You do on that. And so now with just signing a 4-year, $96 million contract this offseason, Quinnen Williams with the Jets, Jets, is starting to show he's worth the money. Now, Joe, what are your thoughts on him?
Top notch. I mean, definitely one of the reasons the Jets are where they are defensively. You know, again, we talked about the quarterback controlling the offense. He's the type of guy that can control a defense and can really make a defense click. So very impressive, watching him, game one, and then just seeing other highlights of him. Again, you got somebody who's really making a name for himself right now and is only going to get better, in my opinion. So another very impressive defensive lineman.
Yeah, and don't forget, he's also got his brother with him too, who I think is a linebacker, I want to say.
I
And
believe.
both the Williams brothers are making an impact. You could say Quinton Williams is probably the reason why the Jets intercepted Mahomes twice, was because he was just getting off the line and getting pressure on Mahomes, and they were putting pressure on him even with a 4-man rush they were getting after with Mahomes. When they blitzed, they got after Mahomes. When they tried to go blitzing linebackers with 2 edge rushers on the side, 4-man rush, they were getting after him. So yeah, it was good to see, to be for Sale on that defense to show different looks.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to Jeffrey Simmons of the Titans. He signed a 4-year, $94 million deal, and he had 8.5 sacks, 7.5 sacks, respectively, with the team. I don't really know much about him, but it sounds like he deserved that contract, being a Pro Bowl player like that. So, Joe, do you have any insights on him?
I really don't know too much about him as well, but when you have numbers like that, 7.5 and 8.5 sacks consistently, you're doing something right, and again, the Titans defense could be a little underrated sometimes. And I think he would be a reason for that. So, again, I can't speak too much because, again, I'm not that familiar and I didn't get a chance to check the stats. But, even just based on what you said, 7.5, 8.5 sacks, you're doing something there and making an impact for your defense.
Okay, so lastly, let's talk about our everybody's favorite big Haas defensive tackle, big boy Vita Vea of the Bucks. He leads the team. He led the team with 6.5 sacks last year as the core of his defense, and he's just a big, massive human. He's like 6'5", 335 to 340 pounds, but he can move. He's got some edge moves, some rush moves. He's a big body in there to stop the run. He can also rush the passer too. So what do you think about Vita Vea? Are your thoughts?
I would say 2 things, constant disruption. It's hard for, excuse me, for offenses to get in a rhythm with a guy like this in your face, that could stop the run, that could make a tackle on and close a hole very quickly, or, potentially get to your quarterback. He's a constant handful. And like I said, a constant disruption. And it makes it very difficult to get into a rhythm offensively when you got somebody like this to worry about. And then you got to get other guys to stop him. And that leaves other openings and other guys maybe coming in if he's not. So, those are the kind of guys, big guys that are just in the way, that could just disrupt and just, have you pull your hair out as an offensive player and coach, to constantly disrupt and come up with a different way to get in your way. So a very valuable player, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So it looks like we're coming to the end of our show. So, Joe, where can we find you in this age of the social media world and the media landscape of 2023?
I am on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Joe Dell Sports. So you can find me there and hopefully follow me there.
And also you can find yours truly, this talented fellow right here, on Bill's Chat 1, at Bill's Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and DefiantTakesFootball.com, where I write about Syracuse football and spring football. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, folks, The Dolphins may have scored 70 points last week. Matt Milano might be underrated as a linebacker. The Bills defense played well. They won big over the Dolphins, still not getting the publicity that the Chiefs are right now. But remember one thing, nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Oh, and before we end our show, we actually got 34 comments. Most of them were from a gentleman named Rick Diaz. He wanted to know how we were doing. And he said, nice to meet you, Joe. Nice to meet you. He called me Jeremy. My name's Jamie, but still, thank you, Rick, for all your comments. It was a pleasure for you to come
nice
on.
to meet you as well.
And Melissa, thank you for commenting as well. You're our number one supporter on the show too. So anyway, we'll see you later, guys. And we'll see you next week.
Have a great night.